Have an update on the billions of dollars being taken.
Scammers, as we know, are becoming more and more sophisticated.
Lying in bed, wondering how I could tell my wife that we'd lost everything.
Our mission is to protect consumers worldwide from scams. Cybercrime is going through the roof, and we need to take action fast.
We cannot keep on working in silos, and we've heard it here a couple of times already today. I think GASA is bringing this cross-sector perspective that is so much lacking in most of the events.
I'm hoping to start finding ways to help take the information I have and really help people.
These type of events are finally going to hear we took action instead of we need to take action and make the world a little bit better.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Raj, and I'm GASA's Southeast Asia advisor. I thank you, everyone, for being on this, our first actually webinar for GASA Southeast Asia. And we thought that we start on a very important topic that's very topical right now in the world of scams, and that's the issue of scam compounds. If you've read reports coming out from organizations like the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, UNODC, you would know that the issue of scam compounds are not isolated. They are increasingly becoming a pattern, and there is a lot of evidence that scam compounds are part of transnational scams, transnational criminal groups, and they are fairly sophisticated, and they continue to evolve, not just in terms of how they actually commit scams, but also in terms of the locations in which they operate from. And we will be discussing more on scam compounds, of course, today, but also in our Asia Summit next week. So GASA is having our Asia Summit in Singapore. It's a sold out conference, unfortunately, but you can join us virtually and you can register on the GASA website. So just very quickly, a bit on GASA. So the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, or GASA, is committed to supporting consumers or fighting against scams. And we do this via sharing intelligence, sharing best practices, and providing platforms for collaboration. And this webinar is really the first of our series of monthly webinars that we will begin, where we'll be talking and sharing a lot of intelligence around different topics of scams. And the format of the webinar we've chosen is quick fire sharings by experts in the field rather than panel discussion. So what you will see today is essentially sharing from 4 experts in 4 segments who will talk about different parts of the ecosystem of scam compounds. The first speaker is BC Tan. He's from Kroll Investigations, and he will be talking about understanding the modus operandi of scam compounds. The second one, we will actually hear a victim testimony, Neo, and he will share a lot more about his experience as part of the very infamous Broken Tooth scam compound. Third, we will go deeper into this quagmire, looking at the money flows and laundering activities, and we will have Jessica from Crystal Intelligence, who will give us a deep dive into how money flows in and out of these scam compounds. And finally, we will hear from someone from law enforcement. We will hear from Mr. Horist, and he comes from the Cybercrime Directorate at the Interpol. And then we will end off with a 10-minute Q&A. So without further ado, can I invite our first speaker, BC Tan from Kroll. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Can you hear me okay? Fantastic. Hi, if you don't mind sharing the slides. Thank you. Okay, great. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for making the time to be on this call, this webinar. And I really want to, I'm very, very grateful to Raj and GASA for spotlighting this obviously very important and devastating issue that we're facing on transnational organized crime, but certainly with a deep impact on frauds and scams that many of you experts are working on. Just to give you some context, so I'm in the business of investigating transnational organized crime, and I've done it for many, many years. and I've been particularly interested in understanding the illicit fund flows of these criminal operations. Now, how I got involved in this topic was I've been looking at transnational organized crime and Asian organized crime evolution for many years. And in early 2021, I started getting leads and intelligence allegedly telling me that Chinese, Malaysians, and Taiwanese were being trafficked or kidnapped into a false scamming situation. So this was very, very early, I guess, in the understanding of this specific situation and typology. And while I was continuously monitoring from that point in time, I was only able to dedicate significant time into this topic sometime around mid-2023. And what I found was absolutely stranger than fiction situation, especially when I started going out into the field working with the NGOs and national authorities. But at that point in time, even in 2023, what we found was there was barely any awareness in communities outside China, nor was this topic actively being covered in the media. And so I and many others started partnering and working with frontline NGOs working on the ground. I often then unfortunately found that the situation on the ground was a lot worse than what was reported in the mainstream. So very, very grateful that GASA is spotlighting this issue and particularly bringing two communities of experts effectively working on the two sides of the same coin together. So let me start the story. Next slide, please. Okay. So all of you are obviously from the GASA community very, very aware of the situation around frauds and scams. You are very much working in parallel with the rest of us on this exponential increase in scams around the world. So as my story goes, what I found, starting working in a more dedicated fashion in 2023, was that in parallel with this exponential increase in scams around the world, we found that there were these industrial scale scam operations all around the world. But we found significant concentration of these light industry business parks dotted very particularly around Southeast Asia. And I have put some photos on the right side of the slide. Some of them are mine, some of them are from my NGO partners and news outlets. So these light industry business parks were being built all around Southeast Asia. You can see the very, very high walls, the barbed wire walls, the grilled windows. And beyond that, what we found were many of these compounds were then staffed with unwilling participants. So unwilling participants who have been defrauded by employment scams and then very, very sadly found themselves incarcerated in these scamming compounds, or in many other cases, simply kidnapped off the streets and forced to conduct scamming operations. These four scammers are put into very strict imprisonment, incarceration, where they are trained to do scamming. They are forced to do scamming, and by forcing them, they are subject to routine torture, punishments to ensure that they are compliant with the requirements. They work very, very, very long hours, often attached to a certain market. So if you're a forced scammer forced to scam the US, West Coast, you will be operating many hours in that time zone out of Southeast Asia. Although somewhat isolated, very, very sadly, there have also been incidents where the four scammers who were either not performing or not compliant were then tortured to the extent that they have had permanent physical damage. Some of them, unfortunately, have been killed as well. There have been murders reported and confirmed in these scamming compounds. Now, we will never be able to absolutely and accurately account for the exact number and scale of these operations, but many organizations such as the UN Office of Drugs and Crimes, and in this particular statistics, the United Nations Human Rights Commission have tried to put an estimated number of victims, of human trafficking victims, who are in these scamming compounds. So the estimate and the number that we've been throwing around and broadly being accepted by the community is about 200,000. So 200,000 persons are currently being incarcerated in these scamming compounds dotted around Southeast Asia. Although the UN Human Rights Commission goes a little bit more detail, assigning specific numbers to specific countries, like 120,000 in Myanmar and 100,000 in Cambodia. I will illustrate in the next slide that this situation is not purely isolated in these two countries. Higher, next slide, please. So they obviously evolve with the amount of attention that is being given in mainstream media. It obviously evolves by that attention to political will and better law enforcement capabilities to address these issues. But from a broad perspective, there are a few hotspots within Southeast Asia. We will speak quite a bit on Myanmar, but Cambodia is one country that has seen a significant concentration of these scam compounds, typically dotted in border towns to Thailand and border towns to Vietnam and border towns to Laos. We have also seen a concentration in the northern part of Thailand or northern part of Myanmar, where it's across the borders of China, and also northern part of Thailand, where the infamous Golden Triangle between Laos, Myanmar, and Thailand meet. Philippines was also a jurisdiction that saw many of these mega compounds, but I do want to call out that the Philippines government has done a tremendous job banning online gaming operators last year, and the law enforcement bodies have been very focused in identifying these compounds, raiding these compounds, and obviously taking the perpetrators to justice. Now, before I go to the next slide, there's a few important parts here. So they're dotted all around Southeast Asia. They are increasingly, with more law enforcement effort, they're increasingly concentrating and moving into places where law enforcement capabilities are low, or it is a jurisdiction where it is highly unstable, i.e. Myanmar, who is currently still in a state of civil war. That's part one. Part two is we've seen a correlation between the growth of these scam compounds, and they tend to coincide with cities or areas where there's a high concentration of casinos. So casinos and also online gambling operations. In the case of, actually in all cases in Cambodia, Myanmar, as well as the Philippines, as I've explained. Next slide, Haya, please. Haya, next slide. So I really want to, I have a short amount of time, so I'm just going to focus on the Mewati area. And the Mewati area is something I'm most familiar with. I have been actively working with an NGO called Global Elms, which I will explain a little bit on the findings working with them. But with Global Elms, they've been working on the front line for many years, and they have supported in the rescue of more than 1,000 victims from these scamming compounds. But in their own activities in helping the scam victims escape, providing intelligence to the law enforcement agencies, They have mapped out more than 30 scam compounds in the Mewadi area alone. Next slide. And I want to spotlight two particular compounds, two mega compounds in that region. So one is KK Park and the other one is Taichung. So what I really wanted to illustrate was first the scale, well, second the scale, but first, when did this phenomenon occur? So we went back in time with Google Earth satellite imagery, and you see that in early 2020, the original site of these compounds were actually very much just farmland, right? So it's an extremely undeveloped area. Just to orientate you to the geography, the Moy River is pretty much what separates Thailand from Myanmar. Thailand is, in this case, on the top, and Myanmar is essentially down from the Moy River in the map that I've illustrated. And we'll see how close and how shallow the Moy River actually is. Next slide. So in 2020, there was nothing. In 2021, early 2021 January, you will see the very first initial setup of these light industries. Next slide. In 2022, you can see, so what I've circled are new sites, right? New expansion. You can see it starting to grow. Again, the scale is relatively small. Next slide. And by 2023 is really when things took off. And I suppose the impetus for this were multifold. One was obviously we're starting to get more pressure from certain law enforcement agencies in certain countries. But also, I would argue it showcases the financial and business success of these scamming operations, that they are able to make money very effectively. It's a highly lucrative endeavor, and therefore more investment then came into this industry that allowed and fueled this growth. Next slide. And just last year, you can see that it has further expanded to a huge compound. And KK Park is no longer one compound, but it's multiple compounds. And within the compounds, obviously, hundreds of independent scamming operations. And if you go to the next slide. And for KK Park, this is 2025. I guess the point I really wanted to show you in contrast between 24 and 25 is that despite the fact that, you know, a lot of us are seeing news articles that governments are cracking down and there have been release of many scam victims from this area, the truth is that the business is very much alive. The business case is very much still very lucrative. And even early this year, you can see new sites being built for new compounds and new buildings in support of these operations. Next slide, please. And just to showcase pictures from the ground, there are multiple entry points from Thailand into Myanmar and vice versa, just to show you the images of the scale of these buildings in the compounds. And I was just most recently there in May, and you can see that in the bottom two pictures, what we believe is a hotel is finally being completed. All right, next slide. Yeah. Another one that I want to showcase is the Taichung compound. The Taichung compound is a compound that, unfortunately, we're still trying to work and understand the people behind it. But the Taichung compound for a very long time was an infamous compound because of the level of violence that they had adopted in forcing the human traffic victims to comply with the scamming operations. So again, 2018, just farmland and a regular village in Myanmar, in the Mewadi area. Next slide. In 2019, some sense of a light industry settlement. Again, at that point in time, we're not sure whether scamming has already started, or it could be a light manufacturing facility, and you can see the road leading to a crossing into Thailand. Next slide. And you can see further expansion in 2020, but not significant. Next slide, please. Okay, the satellite imagery obviously skips a year. We're now in 2022, and you can see things really escalating with a whole new, larger site being cleared, and with development starting, and then the initial site also expanding. Next slide. And we're in 2023. Things really then accelerated, and ending with this year. Next slide, please. 3rd of May, when I was back, 2025, you can see further expansion, and even the crossings being with the riverbanks being solidified, and ensuring that the crossings can be smoother. Now, I orientate you to the pink building that I've circled, and the pink building helps you orientate the view from the Thai side. Next slide. Which brings us to this Taichung compound being infamous because earlier this year there was about 1,000 victims that were sent back due to government pressures. Now, a few points. A lot of people then believe that because 1,000 people were sent back and now more government pressure, the situation is addressed. The short answer is no. It's a great start. We definitely are happy and encourage more actions to be done. But the truth is, if you look at my bottom picture, 3rd of May 2025, you can see very, very clearly from a vantage point in Thailand that the compound or the area there's further expansion. You can see a whole new compound that has sprouted out. The hill that's being leveled, we believe, for further development, and new buildings being built as well. Next slide. Now I've taken up enough time, and really my bit in this 4-person presentation is really just to introduce the concept and make you aware of what the situation is. I'm very much looking forward to Neil's session, coming from a first-person perspective, having been in the Mewadi area as a forced scamming victim. The situation now is that, while I said in 2021, 22, I thought the initial intelligence about victims from China, Taiwan, and Malaysia, the truth is that in this very, very short time of a few years since then, the scamming operations have managed to find false scamming victims from all over the world. This is UN's report from earlier this year. We have already seen other citizenships that are not represented on this table, but really the point on this slide is that it is a global problem. Next slide. And my word of caution is that if we don't address this problem, if we don't nip it in the bud, if we don't identify who are the scamming operation bosses, if we do not curtail their ability to operate, and for us to seize the funds that the illegal funds that they've managed to amass through these scamming operations, what's going to happen is that all these victims, right, who have now found themselves in a scam compound, who have now learned the ropes and operational details of how do you operate a industrial scale scam, will inadvertently find themselves spreading all over the world, right? Well beyond these Southeast Asian jurisdictions, very much back to their home country as well, to set up similar operations. And that obviously will fuel higher number of scams around the world. And I want to end with this last slide. Again, the point I'm alluding to is that we're really all working, all of us working in the scams and fraud space. There are probably two parts of this. One, all of you working on hardening our financial system, finding ways to combat the frauds and scams, and perhaps I, on the other side, working on the human trafficking element, identifying the scam compounds, identifying the scam bosses. It's really two sides of the same coin, and if we don't work collectively together, I think we're not putting our best foot forward, and we're not going to address the root of the problem. Again, in my experience working with the NGOs, and particularly with Global Elms, who have rescued more than 1,000 victims, what I have found is the amount of intelligence that these NGOs hold working on the front line. The intelligence that they get from debriefing victims who have operated 2, 3, 5 months in these scam compounds, understanding the operations, understanding the details, the people, the accounts, and all that. So really, this is just scratching the surface in this very, very complex topic. But I encourage you to read up more on this topic and see opportunities where we can all collaborate, right? The private sector, certainly the NGOs, and with government agencies around the world. Now, on that note, thanks for your attention. I yield the mic.
Hey, thank you so much, BC. I mean, I first heard BC talking at the event in a financial service setting, and I was quite amazed at the level of intelligence. I know BC has been spending up to the last 3 years focusing on this topic, working very closely with NGOs and government. And thank you, BC, for providing that context. For those in the audience, I know you're sending in questions in the comments. Keep them coming. We have a Q&A segment at the end. So we will take those questions then. But I think some of our speakers are also taking the questions on the fly in the chat as they come. But yeah, for those who have questions, continue to put them there. We'll move on to our next presenter now, Neo, who I mentioned earlier, who was a scam victim. And in particular, he was held in the scam compound that was infamously linked with Broken Tooth. Neo, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Raj. I mean, not really in my wildest dream, I could picture myself, my name could be juxtaposed with the the infamous mafioso of China. I mean, a little bit outdated, but still a mafiosa. So, hi, can you put on the slides? Yeah, thank you. So I am Yihao Liu. You may know me from the New York Times pieces called 7 Months Inside an Online Scam Labor Camp as Neo Liu. That was my alias at the time. So initially, I was under the influence of a fake job scam, and I went to Thailand. Then I found myself got kidnapped and trafficked into Dongmei Zone in Milwaukee, Burma. And this specific Dongmei Zone is a scam concentration camp, the project of Broken Tooth or Wang Kuo-kui's Dongmei Group's project. And this is the timeline because we got time limits on this, so I will just skip this part. So from June 2022, I was initially enslaved in the camp, and it has been 7 months for me to get my head around and reach out to different media and my parents. And finally, I was transferred from cartels to BGF custody. Then I was released by the BGF, the Border Guard Forces of Burma, after paying ransom back to Thailand. Then I fled China before the publication of New York Times piece. Now I find myself ended up in Netherlands as asylum seeker, and I'm trying to find a job. So again, because we got time limit on this, so please do excuse me for being blunt here. I am a university dropout, and I was studying the University of Liverpool about a decade ago. And in my past, let's say, a decade of my career, if I can call it a career, I usually work as an expatriate. From time to time, I would say my line of work usually spread from administrative work to ad hoc English to Chinese translations. And I had, let's say, filed 3 labor lawsuits against my ex-employers in China. And last but not least, the 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 last job I got was in Guyana, South America. It pays me at 20,000 IND per month, which is around 2,800 US dollars per month, and accommodation and food were covered. So, so after the first week of training and let's say induction of being the scammers, I tried to, let's say, manage to pull off a self-rescue attempt, but it was a failure. So after some, let's say, twists and turns, including I cried my heart out before those cartel senior members, begging for mercy and leniencies, I finally find myself become their bookkeeper, given my expertise in the administrative line of work. So not only I had the access to the training materials, the script of the scam. Oh, by the way, we were pulling off the pig butchering scam in that cartel. So not only the script, but also I have the access to those, let's say, the running costs, the spendings, the earnings, and the money laundering operation, the things like that. And and one more thing about this bookkeeping job as a slave, I could use my cameras on my work phones because I need to take photos of those electricity meters for calculating the electricity bills. And after about this, I was put on the job by the end of July 2022. And after 6 months, I was a little bit confident enough to, let's say, I have certain level of trust from the cartel. So I reach out to my friend and ask my friend to reach out to the best top tier journalists or journalistic medias in the world, and of course reach out to my parents for the rescue attempt, the Excel plan. So I received my first telephone interviews in one of the toilets at the dormitory when I was still inside of the compound. And after the first telephone interview with the New York Times journalist, I started to take photos of Dongmeizhong, this scam compound, and send all of the photos and the financial documents and anything I could get my hand on to the journalist when I was still in the camp. And this is the typical workspace of a scam cartel. But if you see rows of cell phones instead of maybe just one or two computers, then it has to be a Chinese language based scam, because most of the Chinese application will have this ban on multi-logins on the same devices. And this is another classic casino at the Dongmeizhong. And these are the different corners of Dongmeizhong. I think one thing I have to mention is, because I had done some documentaries since I was applying the asylum in the Netherlands here, two European broadcasters came to me, and one both of them show some drone footage of Dongmei zones. One was taken by the end of 2024, and another one was taken around January 2025. I can see that some new buildings were erected, and I'm not sure if they are operational, but new buildings were erected after I was released from the Dongmei camp since January 2023. So business is booming, I shall say. And this one is is another interesting one. This is express service. As its advertisement, it indicated that the express service provider could provide the express service across China, Thailand, and Myanmar, and it could provide a delivery service in between, to and from the major scam compounds in Mewadi, Burma. And this photo was not taken by me, and this is the major regret I have in the compound, because if you can read Mandarin or if you can read Chinese, you can tell this is called a Hongmen KTV, the same name of Broken Tooth Hongmen Cultural Exchange Organization. And if you look at the logo, you will recognize it is the same logo Broken Tooth adopted for its Hongmen beer brand. And because, well, I can't find a Big Mac nor Madonna inside of the Dongmei zone, so I can't get a Big Mac index for the researchers or journalists. So I went out shopping and have some dinings in some of the eateries. And as you can see here, it is the receipt from one of the eateries. Despite it says Burmese kyats, the currency of Burma government, if you can call it a government, and the USD, all the currency they are using here is Thailand baht cash. Well, at least to my knowledge, in Dongmei zone. And one portion of, I think this is tofu teppanyaki, is costing me 350 Thailand baht. And one portion of the garlic beef rice bowl cost me 200 Thailand baht. But I mean, it might be rather conventional to European and Americans, but you have to understand they are using Burmese labor force, which means it should be the minimum wages, and it should be like the lowest tier of labor cost around the world. And this one is another interesting one. This is the receipt from the Dongmei camp's local grocery store. And on top of that, it says Dongmei Supermarket. It is called the Saixigang branch. It is alias for Dongmei zone, Saixigang branch, Mewadi, Burma. And it was generated in 28 December 2022. So I had to check all of the items. So in general, I would say the cost of living, maybe not the right word, the purchasing power or the pricing of those groceries is tripled or quadrupled comparing to the civilized world or the free world. And of course, I took some screenshots and downloaded some menus from the Dongmei camp's eateries. And I was attempting to show some torture clips of mine, but given we got time limits here, and since you are already, listening to me, ranting and whining, so I will spare you from further misery. So it was 3rd January 2023, I was sent to the torture chamber for 18 days straight, and those torture clips were recorded by the cartel themselves and were sent to my parents for ransom. So because at the time I was begging for paying the ransom and get released, and the cartel want to make it more, let's say, convincible. And well, for the record, those photos were taken after I was released by the BGF back into Thailand. So you can see the timestamp on the top. It was 25 January 2023. Yep, and I could tell you it had been at least 7 to 10 days since the final beating I suffered when the photos were taken. And dial back to the time I got released. So it was, I think it was 23rd or 24th January 2023. After some, I don't know, brokerage, I believe, thanks to my rescuer, the cartel had transferred me into BGF custody, and the BGF was literally interrogated me and video recorded me for my so-called confession. They warned me, the BGF had warned me before my release, do not talk to media, do not speak up, and took my expired passport and my Chinese ID card, photocopy them, and warned me if I dare to speak up, they will come after me and my parents and kill us. Yep. But since I had been working with, let's say, scam cartel, I think I learned something about lying from the professional. So yeah, so I'm sorry, BGF, it's happening. So it was late January. I was released by BGF after those big promise, those after the empty promise I made to them. I was released back to Mae Sot Airport at Mae Sot, Thailand. Then, because my passport was in the custody, my valid passport at the time was in the custody of a Chinese cartel, and I never see that passport again. So the rescuer planned the exfil plan. I have to evade Thailand police inside of the Thailand until I reach Bangkok. Otherwise, I will be incarcerated by the Thailand immigration office because, for obvious reason, I will stay my Thailand visa at that moment. So, in short, I had changed. I have switched to 6 different vehicles within 1 day, so I could travel from Mae Sot to Bangkok without any repercussion. So I have to wait for the Chinese embassy came back to holiday. But why I want to put this here, because I want to tell you, I would say every party therein, okay, want to have a slice of you. I feel like I am a piece of meat. Everyone wants to take a bite. Everyone wants to make me their KPI. Because the BGF, okay, BGF wants you to think that you are a criminal, that you are not a victim, therefore you will be silenced. Thailand, for the obvious reason, it's better for business, it's better for the tourism, it's better for everything. And the Chinese government, well, if the Chinese government is saying, oh, we have this industrial scale kidnapping and the slavery against Chinese citizen, it's not really good. So this person has to be a criminal, then it will fit the narrative. And after my flight was on 1st February 2023. It was a flight from Bangkok to Shanghai. During the flight, I was thinking, you know what? The real battle just begun. I have to talk to different media. And once I reached to Shanghai, and I re-established my contact with New York Times journalist, and the journalist asked, "Have you heard of Broken Tooth? Have you met Broken Tooth in the concentration camp?" And I was like, "Broken Tooth, what?" And then I start to research, and I figure, well, if I want to have the New York Times piece out, if I want to speak freely and search for my justice, I think I better leave China once for all. And this is why. Because back in 2020, Broken Tooth and his organization, which included the key investors of this scam concentration camp, was already sanctioned by the US Treasury, like 2 years ago, before my slavery. Well, and before the release of New York Times piece, Broken Tooth 1 Homeland Organization, 2 Saixigang Zone, or aka Dongmei Zone, still got its official WeChat account on WeChat, and I downloaded everything and sent to different media straight away. Yeah, that's what I do. And I don't know whether it is a movie joke or what. I received my it's kind of weird one. I received my WHV visa invitation letter to apply for Australia visa when I was still in the camp. It was November 2022. So my easiest choice, of course, is apply for the visa to the Australia. But guess what? The visa application asks you 2 questions, and I have to answer yes. 1, have you involved in any form of crime? Unfortunately, yes, I am involved in organized crime. 2, have you involved in human trafficking? Yes, I am involved, but both as a victim. And guess what? Of course, Australian immigration refused my application visa application for obvious reason. But of course, for the record, it is well funded and it was done by the book. It was not refused on the ground of I am the victim of human trafficking and organized crime. So it's PR crisis free, of course. And after the release of New York Times piece, it was on 17 December 2023. At the time, I was already far away in Guyana, South America, in exile. And after that, and till now, I have done more, done more interview with different media. I guess it's a bad news for BGF and bad news for Broken Tooth, I suppose. And after that, it was October 2024, my application to Ireland, the study visa was not responsible, was not responsive. So I was thinking maybe I could spend another, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years to be granted with different governments immigration office and have to go through all those hypocrisy, or maybe I should just go for the asylum. That's what I did last year because I want to tell my story with my face on. I don't want any flimsy anonymity anymore because it's not working anyway. Because BGF, Broken Tooth, or the small time, the Chinese scam cartel, they all know who I am because the story itself is rather unique. So I ended up in the Netherlands as an asylum seeker. And in last 3 years, there are something bugging me. There are some questions and there are some unjust things bugging me because you see, the facts are I am a Chinese national and my ex-slavers is a Chinese gang. The Chinese gang is scamming Chinese citizens on China's soil. And it is the bottom tier of this food chain. And to move upward, you have this scam compound, right? Dongmei Group was a Hong Kong firm. It is a key investor in Dongmei Zone. And who is the boss of Dongmei Group? The ex-triad, a Macaulay called Broken Tooth, or you may know his full name, Wang Kuo-kwai, the infamous one. And move upward, so local government, if you can call it a government. So Chinese government is recognizing Burmese hunters' legitimacy after 2021's coup. And the Chinese government sees Burmese hunter as its strategic ally, and the border guard force of Burma, which is called the BGF, only cut ties with Burmese hunter after January 2024. I mean, I was kidnapped and trafficked into Dongmei, Mewadi, Burma back in 2022. So, and earlier this year, Chinese Assistant Minister Liu Zhongyi visited Mae Sot and Mewadi with the company of officials from Burmese hunter. I mean, it means the Chinese government is recognizing the political legitimacy of Burmese hunter and the BGF governments in Mewadi area. So it begs the question, where is Chinese government in all of this? Yeah. And where is Broken Tooth? I mean, I told everything about myself, and I told everything about the compound, and I told everything about the Broken Tooth, BGF 2, to the Chinese police. So it has been 2 years since I was having this little conversation with the Chinese police. So where is Broken Tooth? And last but not least, where is BGF? I mean, consider it's both a rhetorical question and a straightforward question. So I have something additional read for you. So this is ART documentaries. The title was Triads, the Chinese Mafia Conquering the World, in which Priscilla Clapp, the official from the USIP, a intelligence organ of US federal government. Well, if you are in the business, you must heard of USIP. In the document, Priscilla was literally saying they have the evidence to prove that in the initial phase, there is a Chinese state-owned company had a share in the Dongmei camp. But after the exposure made by the USIP and after the sanction made by the US Treasury, the Chinese government state-backed company cut ties with the Dongmei camp. And this major investigative piece made by the Washington Post is a huge one. In short, it literally elaborated the Hongmen organization, which is initiated and established by the Broken Tooth, global footprint across the world, and its ties with Beijing too. And after reading it, you should know why I have to flee China and apply for asylum in the Netherlands, because I don't really see any reason I could survive in China anymore. And if those things, got strict ties with concentration camp in Mewadi, Burma is not convincing you, maybe you should check out this piece from the Four Corners and Australia media. Chinese spy. So this Eric is a former Chinese spy. His target is one of his targets disclosed in this news piece was luring and kidnapping a Chinese dissident into Cambodia. And guess what? His local handler, assigned by the Chinese National Security Wing, is Prince Group. I mean, if you are here in the webinar, you must know what Prince Group is in Cambodia. So I will just leave it here. And this one is another interesting one. Turkey had busted a Chinese spying ring, and one thing captured my attention is the Chinese spying ring allegedly hacked into bank accounts to drain the saving for the operational expenses, which means they are self-funded. So I will just leave it here because I don't really want to make it more sound like a conspiracy. So again, I understand that my title is a university dropout and a victim of human trafficking. So it doesn't make me, let's say, doesn't make my word credible to you. So I will leave the US government, the federal government, to do the talking. I will say the key findings of these two reports are rather, let's say, let's put it this way, I can't conclude it better myself. So I will just read it out loud. Yeah. China is exploiting the problem of scam compounds to increase its leverage over Southeast Asian governments, conduct intelligence and influence operation, and expand its security footprint in the region. Beijing has selectively cracked down on scam centers that target Chinese victims, leading Chinese criminals organizations to conclude that they can make a great profit with lower risk by targeting citizens of wealthy countries such as the United States. So let me re-utter my questions once more. Where is Chinese government in all of this? Where is Broken Tooth? I mean, I ended up in Netherlands as an asylum seeker. Well, I believe Mr. Broken Tooth, Mr. Wang Kuokui, is having his fun in somewhere in Southeast Asia. I think his last boat was in Laos, in some KTVs, dancing, drinking with his mates. And another question is, where's the BGF, the strategic ally of Chinese government? Well, here's my word against the BGF. They are the final beneficiary of the scam compound. And then let me ask one more question. I think it should be left to you. Does diplomacy work since 2020? And I will fast move forward to this. I think this is the right direction. Yep. So please skip the black gloves. Proxy, the scapegoat, the darkest, real thunderbolts, those thieving governments. And that's the end of it. Thank you.
I think it's stories like this where it's first-hand accounts that really question our assumptions that we hold, right? I thank you so much. We are running behind our time, so we will speed up into the next sharing, and then we will take questions at the end. Our next guest is Jessica from Crystal Intelligence, who will talk more about how money moves into and out of the scam compounds. Jessica, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It was an interesting sharing with Neo and also with my good friend BC, and at least the audience here have a broader idea what is really happening. And pig butchering scams is very unique to the Southeast Asian. You can see that from Neil's presentations, they have like human trafficking elements, money laundering, casinos. Well, if there's evidence tying to selling organs, which United Nations is also working on that piece, that will be a more complicated case compared to most of the scam compounds in the world. So thank you, GASA, for inviting me here. I don't have a personal story to share, but I work with law enforcement pretty much like Horace and Interpol unit. I work with mainly legal firms, and also I work with law enforcement around Southeast Asia. And with all these cases that is happening, you can sense that something is really a very important piece that is all driving all the stories of Neo and of course BC here. First thing first is that you can tell that the money moving is crazy. And of course, if you look into Neil's story himself, he's not one person. And if you look into BC's deck just now, Cambodia alone is I think 100,000 people and 120,000 in Myanmar. I think that was his deck. So with this kind of grand scale of compound, we know that they are operating in a big scale of money. So the question now is that what kind of financial institution will facilitate money that has been through like a black market or, of course, a scam compound? Yes, if you're thinking of cryptocurrency, that's true. Crystal is actually a blockchain analytics company. So we help law enforcement and company to look into how to dissect and also unreveal what is the shield behind this cryptocurrency. So myself, I came from TradFi, and I was in HSBC for a few years dealing with compliance. But the most interesting part in my career, in the pivotal point, is that I feel like money laundering is getting very, very interesting. So this way I'm landing into Crystal. Prior to my career, I was in Chainalysis. So I don't want to waste too much time. I'm sure you want to know how this story is built out after Neo and BC. I'm not doing marketing here, but I want to know that if anyone have basic information on how to trace on-chain, you can actually, with no permission, you can go on Etherscan or Blockchain Explorer or even the Tron Scanner to check on someone's transaction. That's very, very legit because all the transaction happens on something called public blockchain. In some of the cases we manage, they are in privacy coin, which is like Monero. That is a private blockchain. You can't see things like this. But in Crystal or any other blockchain analytics, we give a bit more analytics. And of course, in our data analytics, almost 100,000 wallet has been labeled. More than 58% is been labeled tied to fraud and scam. Scam is the largest component of all the analytics. Now you know that this is really not a story, a nice story that Neo or BC is sharing. It's really something can happen to people around us, or some people is really suffering in the scam compound. So you may ask is that, oh, how big is crypto crime? This data is a bit outdated, probably in the 2023 or 2017. But crypto crime, like what BC have shared, is still in an increasing manner. The scam compound is still at a rising rate, and things are still in a very good business for them. Regardless, the world probably is still suffering recession now, but that business, I can assure you that is actually in a exponential growth in a positive manner. So you can tell that this scam business is really striving at the moment, and a lot of them use crypto to launder money, or better to be accurately say, is layering. So problem with crypto crime at the moment is that we see a lot of fraud websites and there is a lot of network infrastructure. What I mean here is that if today you are not very prone into crypto investigation, or you are newbie into crypto investigation, I can guarantee you, if you just search any of the website online, there will be illegit P2P websites or unlicensed exchange rather than the licensed exchange. If you really want to go in depth into which are the licensed exchange, you need to do homework. That means that if you go to MAS, they will say that there are 30 license has been registered, like crypto.com, things like this, they are legit. But often a lot of people, they don't understand. And this is why when you don't understand, you can fall into the network of part of the layering, possibly helping the money launderers or a broken tooth to lay money. This is really money laundering in a grand scale that people knowingly, unknowingly becoming into part of it. So as for law enforcement, which Horace is going to talk a little bit more on that, what we have seen and get to help the law enforcement is that they may actually get victim response from this local law enforcement, like Malaysian PDRM, but they only can see that part of the information. And if you look into a grand scale, that is more accounts that is related to Muse account or funnel accounts, and there are many ways to do conversions. And because of that, is technical in nature. I would say that recovering money for scam compound like this, or scammers, or for scammers to launder money and to recover money from victims can be a challenging task. So this is what most of the police and law enforcement will be looking at, is that there will be victims putting up to say, I have been scammed and this is a wallet address that I know I have not seen that person, and can you help me to recover money? This is a big problem for law enforcement because the data is almost like non-existent because you have not seen the person, and you're looking into not a bank account. You're looking at a TC1S and an OX. Do you even know what that means? So this is the complexity on why it takes a little bit longer, or maybe you have to also challenge the existing law enforcement, the legal framework of the jurisdiction for a transnational crime at the moment. So for crypto crime, it's very easy to raise money because you can have like a broken tooth managing like many compounds, or you can actually also have ISIS, Hamas, they can just get from donations, from theft. And if you have experience in .NET market, I hope you don't have any, but these are the things that raising money is very easy. But spending money for all this is very hard because you are talking about big amount of money, and of course, bank will definitely not entertain. They will probably label you, and of course, they will talk to the law enforcement. So this is where we see that in money laundering, why Tron and why USDT has been a favorite tool that used among the criminals, because outside the TradFi or the traditional finance system, USDT or USDT are served as good as USD back, and it's one-to-one, more flexible, very stable, and it's very speedy. And you're going to ask me the next question is that if the banks are not entertaining, who are these conversion agents you're talking about here, Jess? Of course, they will use mixing just to obfuscate and to confuse the law enforcement where the money come from. But let me tell you, this is a bit high level for most of you here, but for law enforcement like Horace, probably he will understand very easily to say that, okay, I know that the mixing will be part of the channel they will use, KYC as fake IDs and all these synthetic IDs are used to try to launder money for unlicensed exchange. However, the other part of the unlicensed exchange, or technically you're talking about over-the-counter, P2P, and ATMs, are here to serve as a fertile ground for money laundering. And this is where I was mentioning just now, if the TradFi or license exchange are not entertaining this broken tooth money, they might be possibly flowing through a P2P agent, a OTC desk that is obviously unlicensed and mainly on ATMs. That is going to be a different topic, but this is really what is happening on ground at the moment. Let's go to one case study before I pass the mic to Horace. I will pick somewhere a little bit near to Sihanoukville. It's actually in the Chinatown of Sihanoukville. If you look into BC's stat just now, I think he make a very nice graph. This belongs to Sihanoukville. And of course, in Kaibo Casino scam operation, I don't have fancy pictures like Neo or the primary sharing from that. But based on our data, there's a lot of transactions coming in and out from the related or labeled or attributed wallet addresses relating to this compound. And of course, you're going to, if you read Mandarin, this is also 101 Sazupan kind of scam that they are operating. And of course, like BC Stack, target victim is Singaporean, Malaysian, Taiwan, and Indonesian. I would say that target victim in terms of Malaysian and Taiwanese was more on this job advertisement, but Singaporean and maybe Indonesian or Japanese, they are more into the scam victims where they're going to, get money from them. Of course, they will do recruitment via social platform like FB, Instagram, Coffee Mix Bagel, and of course, they will have a fake investment platform using AI-generated profiles. So back to my previous page, they say that it's actually the website is fake and all this. This is where a lot of people, when they start logging into a website, they can't differentiate, is this a legit or illegit or licensed or unlicensed? This is really, really the case that we are seeing a lot of victims. The first step, they already went wrong on the first place. They went to the wrong website. So of course, you know that initial profit lead into bigger investment, just like Sazupan. That means that you actually try to feed the baby, piglet, and then when they're old enough and slaughter them. Technically, that is the method. I'm sure there's a lot of victims have shared similar experience, and then later stage, including blackmailing and impersonation. So technically what BC and Neo share is really one of the many, many stories, but this is real, okay? And of course, once we got hold of the wallet address and we tried to do the on-chain, off-chain matching part, we see that also there were some banks in, say, Metropolitan Commercial Bank. They do have, maybe they don't know that this was used for this purpose or illicit purposes, but somehow we are able to get hold of their off-chain information and also some of the bank details, which is quite surprising. And definitely, as I mentioned just now, the TRC20, ERC20 wallets are pretty much used to facilitate this kind of illicit activities. Again, just to share exact location, where is this Kaipo Casino? Actually, it's the Chinatown of Sihanoukville. And this is actually the that I've shared. So the modus operandi is really recruitment and training. So they get hold of this victim through Facebook, Instagram. They use social engineering to do deceptions, build trust with victim. Once the rapport has been established, the victim will use to direct them to like fake investment websites or mobile applications, and then make initial unknown bank transfer or pre-tax investing. That's where you can see that bank accounts may or may not appear, but definitely crypto accounts or crypto wallets are involved in that. And of course, another headache for law enforcement now is the AI enhanced deceptions. In order to get into this kind of filtering system, how to detect an AI, an avatar, and whether this person is having a synthetic IDs, at the moment, I think tech companies, not us, because we don't do onboarding or biometrics. But this is one of the component that law enforcement around Southeast Asia are looking into. As mentioned in my earlier slide, they will use mixing. They will definitely use something called mule synthetic accounts as well. So things like this. And I just want to really go through very simple. We do have deep dive investigation into wallet like this. And this is some of the chats that we are able to get hold of their wallet address. It's part and parcel of our investigation team that we attribute data. So this is where we also be spy and try to talk to this kind of people that operate in scam compounds. I'm just going to quickly run through that for you. At least you know that this data is real. And of course, in our system, once we get into, when you're moving the money, so normally the graph from the left to right, the money will roll. And often when we see the deposit wallet or the control wallet by the mule account, we are not talking about 1 million. It's too small for them. At least like 5 million and above. And this is one of the many, many wallets. For this, at least on-chain data, you can tell that this is not a small project they are operating, and definitely is lucrative in this kind of, it's very profiting for this kind of business as well. So I have some graph, but I hide it. But they are, in the end of this wallet addresses, they will try to use some unlicensed exchange, like just now Neil talked about Prince Group, and he said you must know Prince Group. Maybe now you also want to do another homework. Think about who owns Huiwen and why Huiwen can be bigger than the national domestic GDP in Cambodia. And that is my ending note for everyone here. Thank you. Rajesh, I think I finished my deck.
Yes.
And,
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jessica. Really interesting to see that how money moves off and on the crypto chain. As you know, a lot of our research in the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, we also see cryptocurrency as one of the top 3 ways in which scammers move their money. And it's very clear Scam Compounds has perfected this into a science, which is very essential for us to kind of understand how this is done. And a lot of the, I suppose, large organizations and law enforcement currently use this as well. So it was very good to see this level of resolution. Thank you so much, Jessica. And we'll move towards our final presentation for the day. We have Horace from the Cybercrime Directorate of Interpol, who will give us a law enforcer's perspective. Horace, please.
Thank you very much. So let me show up my presentation. Yes. Sorry. All right. So good morning or good afternoon, everyone. This is Horace Aoyang, the coordinator of ASP Desk under Cybercrime Directorate of Interpol. Very brief introduction. Interpol aims to facilitate cross-border police cooperation and support, and to assist all organizations, authorities, and services whose mission is to prevent or combat international crime, including GASA, of course. So thank you very much for inviting us for this webinar. So before I start, just want to highlight, according to Article 3 of the Interpol Constitution, it's strictly forbidden for the organization to undertake any intervention or activities of a political, military, religious, or racial characters. So just highlight we are political neutral when we are handling the crimes. So let's start my presentation. So I will briefly talk about our organization, especially Cybercrime Directorate and the ASP Desk, and then talk about our project, ASP JOC, So we have covered some events and initiatives, and at the end, how we tackled cyber crimes, including cyber scam camps. So you can see this is our global structure. Interpol is one of the largest international organizations which has this truly global presence. We have included General Secretariat, and also we have 196 member countries around the world. For the General Secretariat, is effectively the headquarters of the organization. Makes criminal data available to our member countries, while secure communication channels. We have our own I-24/7 networks and provides the technical and operational support to our member countries, which operate 24/7. The Interpol headquarters is based in Lyon, France, and for me, I'm based in Singapore in the Interpol Global Complex for Innovation. And we also have 6 regional bureaus and 3 liaison offices and 3 representation offices around the world. For Interpol, we have 4 global programs. Our initiatives, our activities are based around these 4 programs that reflect the policing concerns, including counterterrorism, organized and emerging crime, financial crime and anti-corruption, last but not least, cybercrime. So technology has enabled economic and social growth, but reliance on the internet makes people vulnerable and create new opportunities for the criminals. And also the borderless nature of cybercrime pose challenges for law enforcement. And so we can see that much digital evidence side with the private sectors as well. So our strategy is to make cyberspace safer for everyone by helping countries to identify cyber attacks and their perpetrators. We do this by analyzing threats, trends, and data, and connecting the cyber and physical information to locate the perpetrators. And you can see here we have divided into different regional operation desks. At the current stage, we have 4 active desks, namely Africa desk, ASP desk, Americas, and MENA desk. While we are continue to building up its manpower and contacts with the countries in the regions. For ASP desk, as you can see in this map, essentially the 2 rows of countries shown on the screen are under our desk purview. There are altogether 44 countries, 30 under Asia and 14 under the Pacific region. So talking about our ASP desk, we address growing cyber threats in the region through the following pillars. The first one, enhancing cybercrime intelligence for effective responses to cybercrime. Just like Jessica mentioned, we are here to facilitate the intelligence exchange, not only between Interpol, but also we involve private partners and our member countries. Pillar 2, strengthening cooperation for joint operations against cybercrime. And later I will showcase some operation results. Pillar 3, developing regional capacity and capabilities to combat cybercrime. So we also work together with other partners to provide training to our law enforcement agencies around the world. And Pillar 4, promoting good cyber hygiene for safer cyberspace, such as global awareness campaign. So for the project of ASP Desk, Funding was sought from the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office from UK for our ASP decks, and so we kickstart the Asia and South Pacific Joint Operations Against Cybercrime project, in short ASP JOC, started in June last year. And as you can see in this timeline, we have done quite a lot of initiatives throughout the year, including webinar, threat assessment reports, working group meetings. I just highlight the working group meetings here. So within the region, we invited our cybercrime leaders to gather, and we can discuss the issue within the region, try to think about how we can effectively cooperate with each other to fight against cybercrime. And then we can also have the joint operations within the region. So yeah, that's the timeline. And later on, now we are ongoing to ready to alliance to publish the second cyber threat assessment report for 2025. So regarding cybercrime, we mainly focus on the below threats, which including phishing attacks, malware, social engineering, deepfake, or AI-related scams, botnets, something like that. So let's talk about the operations that we have conducted and mounted together with our member countries and private partners. So this one is Operation Synergy 2. The operation started between April and September last year, which targeting phishing websites, malware, info stealer infrastructure, and etc. So altogether, 95 member countries participated. And so for ASP region, we have 20 member countries joined as well. So you can see the results here. And next one, and other operations, is called Operation Secure. It is the first regional operation under ASP desk. We just concluded a few months ago, and we focused to shut down the info stealer variants, which we believe such enforcement action could help to tackle the further development of various scams. For the past several years, Interpol has been closely observing a growing crime phenomenon, which is a large-scale human trafficking, where victims are lured through fake jobs app to online scam centers, and forced to commit cyber-enabled financial crime on an industrial scale. So the crime trend, which has been tens of thousands trafficked in Southeast Asia and many of the fraud around the world, has attracted media attention and prompt government and civil society response. So initially, we see that online scam centers were concentrated in Cambodia, one of the Southeast Asia countries, which further trafficking hubs later identified in Laos, Myanmar, and to echo with other speakers, trafficking hubs have been identified in at least 4 more Asian countries. And we can see that there is a trend to spread over to other regions like Africa or Americas. Likewise, the geographic diversity of both sets of victims has also dramatically increased. While initial human trafficking victims were Chinese speaking, drawn from China, Malaysia, Thailand, or Singapore, victims have since been trafficked to the region from as far afield as South America, East Africa, and Western Europe as well. Just about anyone in the world could fall victim to either the human trafficking or the online scams carried out through these criminal hubs. We need to emphasize that Stronger international police cooperation is needed to stop this crime trend from spreading further. So the online scam centers represent a double-edged crime threat, exploiting two sets of victims. On the one hand, victims drawn into the human trafficking schemes are subject to forced labor and often extortion through a type of debt bondage, as well as bettings, sexual exploitation, torture, rape, and even alleged organ harvesting in some cases. Criminal groups post false promises to attractive job opportunities on the social networks and recruit sites, kidnap and detain those applicants in inhuman living conditions while engaging the victims in forced criminality, including online fraud or other dirty jobs inside the scam compounds. On the other hand, the traffic workers are used to perpetrate a range of online fraud on a second set of victims, increasingly scattered around the world. The scheme included investment fraud, romance scams, fraud linked to cryptocurrency investment, and online gambling, etc. So I think you may know these actors from China. So on January 3rd this year, Mr. Wang Xin, a Chinese actor, was deceived into a scam center in Myanmar by a fraud group, and so he was scammed to go to the Thailand at the beginning for filming. So at the end, he, together with several detained persons, has been rescued by the Thai authority and the Chinese authority. So the world is facing an increase in international criminal activities. As we face a new global security crisis, we must focus on expanding the global response to organized crime, including cybercrime. So we are seeing a significant rise in the impact of global crime, which often driven by the international criminal gangs. More violence, crime, counterfeiting, smuggling, extortion. So all of these are very serious crime. And the growth of the organized crime driven by the digital technology as well, and the geopolitical divisions and diversification and global activities of criminal groups are making the work of law enforcement more difficult. So that's why we need to have multi-agency approach. We have to work together with other jurisdictions, link up all together to fight the cybercrime. And here you can see the online scam continue to be the most threat across the region. And let's talk about Interpol's effort to combat these cyber scam camps. Last year, we had held a webinar, and we invited our partners to join this webinar and to discuss how we can effectively fight against the cyber scam camps. And also, just like I mentioned, we had the working group meetings for the heads of cybercrime units. The first one was in Manila, Philippines last year, September, and the second one was held in July this year in Hanoi, Vietnam. And we have come up with some agreement among the participating countries and to provide intelligence to Interpol and share with other member countries and to work together to fight against these scam camps. So for joint operations, these are the upcoming operations, including Rising Star, targeting foreign exchange scams, and rapid strike suspicious websites. So we also invited all our member countries, private partners, and other NGOs to share the crime prevention materials at the same time on the internet. So this is a 2-week global awareness campaign conducted last year in December, and we hope that we can maximize the coverage of this crime prevention message on the internet. So to conclude my presentation, I use the word trust. Trust is very essential value that bond partnership together, not only Interpol, but also private sectors, our partners, our member countries. Without the support and trust, I believe we have more hurdles while fighting cyber crimes. And so, with trust, it's benefits for us to have more intelligence exchange. We can pass the data to other relevant parties to effectively do the analysis and to do the law enforcement actions. So fighting cybercrime is not easy, but we have to keep moving. And so that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So now we would now move to our Q&A part. So I'll just like to bring in all of our speakers on stage. Then we could select a few to answer any questions. So just picking it up, 1 sec. Okay, let's have from Sam S. from Mastercard. From a law enforcement perspective, what do you see as a true actionable intelligence that could be shared from the broader finance service community? Who likes to answer this?
Maybe I'll give it a shot, and I'll open up for Horace as well. And I wanna, if you don't mind, I want to combine that with another question from Zoe, who's asking. I think it was Zoe who's asking why are we not seeing the successes that we're seeing. And I think it's perfect timing. So a few things from my point of view. So the scale is obviously at an unprecedented level that we're seeing, definitely from the scams perspective. And now we're getting this, the flip side of the coin. You're seeing all these massive scam camps and scam compounds, and the hundreds of thousands of people that are working. That's one unique aspect. The second unique aspect is that this problem is inherently global and cross-border. So you have scamming operations and compounds in country A, you have victims from country B, C, D, E, F, G, you have scam targets and scam victims from a whole different set of countries using very, very different methods, right? And then the third point obviously is the methods and instruments which they use, which are highly cyber enabled, they're very progressive. And then the money laundering aspect, which Jessica has very kindly shown how they are very innovative in that sense. So I guess in a long about way, the point that I'm trying to raise, why I'm not saying that we're not getting effective or good outcomes. I'm just saying it's a very, very long and arduous battle, and it requires the likes of Interpol organizing the different countries. It requires the technologists like Jessica and enabling with us with the tools. But also, I think the biggest challenge I have as an investigator is following and tracing the money, which is primarily finding evidence between the scam victims and then tracing that and accounting that back to a scam operation or a scam compound. Right? Somehow in the middle, something breaks. We can't paint that whole picture. And without painting the whole picture, we can't hold the scamming operations accountable. We're really just trying to block a leaky bucket, right? And that's really where I argue that working with the NGOs, working with multiple law enforcement agencies, and all the private sector partners in between these transactions can play very important intelligence roles in contributing meaningful and insightful information. I'm not sure if Horace and then after Jessica has any view on that.
Maybe I'll just add on to this actionable intelligence. I just want to share that the actionable intelligence or the data that we work with law enforcement, some of them are from police report, of course, sharing with, different region. MLAT is not really going to work because you can tell that it's going to take a year and you get the case to slip away. But I feel like the true actionable intelligence you can mention here is also from NGOs, like what BC have talked about, and of course sharing from victim like Neo. And that one is where we get a lot of very trusted small pieces so that we can make them into a bigger picture as evidence that they can raise a case. Second part is that through our investigation or the training with law enforcement, OSINT has to be used in a very creative manner for to solve problems like that. Traces like from social media, there's always traces into how these people are connecting because you can profile behavioral analysis and things like this. But this is a much bigger problem that you're thinking about because you are talking about transnational crime fitting into jurisdiction-based law. And of course, if there's no nexus to a certain case, it's very hard to touch. A scam compound that you're talking about, like what BC's number, 6 figures, 100,000. Who is going to charge a case on that? I think Interpol hands are tied as well because of the evidence and also from which perspective that we're going to trial and which court. So I feel like that is really why everyone is talking about PPP, public-private partnership, for the sake of data sharing is key here. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, BC and Jessica. So from the perspective of Interpol, first of all, it's a little bit sad that we do not have enforcement power. So for the law enforcement action, we heavily rely on the member countries, the local authorities. But it doesn't mean that we can do nothing. So just like to echo my presentation, we also work on the prevention. So if all the citizens or all our people do not fall into the scam, so the scam centers cannot operate effectively, they cannot make any profit, they cannot gain any benefit from scamming people. So that's the very important steps. And also working together with other private partners, including crystal intelligence, we share the intelligence with the member countries, with other NGOs. So those intelligence could pass to the local law enforcement agencies and for them to take further action. And sadly again, we cannot force the member countries to take action because we only we are the facilitators, we are the coordinators between the member countries. Of course, we wish the intelligence can reach the right units and they can take appropriate actions. And subsequently, they can arrest the suspects, they can crack down the scam centers, they can seize the exhibits, and etc. But all again, we need their contributions. So I need to stress the importance of law enforcement actions by the member countries, and that's why Interpol officers we always have various visits to the member countries and talk face to face directly to the leaders of cybercrime units or other leaders so that we can emphasize the cooperations is very important, and without their support, the scam may continue. And so, of course, we keep fighting cybercrime together, and the member countries are not working alone. And if necessary, we can be the facilitators to line up operational meetings, courtesy visits for our member countries so they can have effective communications.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we move on to the next question. So I think this is during the time when Neo was presenting. So who benefits from all these scams?
So maybe at this point, before Neo structs his answer, can I also throw in an additional one? So one of my, Neo had a very in-depth and very different point of view, right? Because he was actually in the compound scamming operations, and he showed us the economics of the scamming compound. Actually, one part that, because we were really short of time, I was curious if Neo could share the options to which he was able to leave the scamming compounds, if there was a price tag to it, and how that would have worked if he went ahead with those options.
Right. So let me answer your question first. The price tag is literally tagged with, I would say, binded with your nationality, unfortunately, because I believe from the hindsight, again, it is from my own personal assumption, it is literally up to the slaves' nationalities and the government's influence over that region, so to speak. Let's say if I were a U.S. passport holder, I don't think anyone would dare touch me. Otherwise, Uncle Sam will swoop in and punish some unruly cartels too. And on top of that, I believe it is subject to the person's, I believe, individual's family background, especially linked to the finance. But I would say the majority of it is, again, the nationalities. For instance, as I complained to most of the journalists, that why I have to pay 274,000 Chinese yuan, which it was around, I think it was around 40k US dollars to the Chinese cartel. It is because the Chinese government is barely saving or rescuing any of its citizens from the scam compound, which means it is sending out signals to all those Chinese cartel operating in the region and to those governments too, that the Chinese citizens are free of repercussion. Okay, it is for the taking. As long as you are kidnapping people and you keep them there, nobody is going to pressure you to cuff them up. That's it. That's why I would, like in other circumstances, I had to make it more like a business conversation, because you have to see this as a slave economy. Any investment into the slave is a real estate. It's immovable investment. So if you are buying a slave for a certain price, and you know this slave is not going to be rescued by any parties, then this investment will be solid, which means the safer the slave is, the higher price it goes. So that's my opinion.
And just to expand a little bit on Neo's point, I'm conscious that Zoe's actually asked a question as well. So for a human traffic force scamming victim to leave the compound, there are really three options. One is you try to escape, which is most times unsuccessful and extremely dangerous, because you will die, unfortunately, if things don't go well. The other two options would be you hope and pray that your government will come exert pressure and rescue you, which thankfully has increased in the recent years or months at least. But the third and the most commonly used option is you ransom yourself out. You discuss with your captors, who are your scam operating bosses, and you agree on an amount that you will pay. I think the word you used, when we spoke, was compensation, right? They didn't think it was ransom; they call it compensation, but effectively a ransom that you will agree and your family will pay in order for you to leave. Now, thankfully, Neo got out, but a lot of times you can then be resold again to another compound, and then you start from the bottom and back at zero. In your experience, Neo, for those ransoms or those compensation payments, how are they typically paid?
Right. As for that matter, I would say in my first 2 or 3 months, I was Googling really hard inside the compound, learning what kind of trouble I got myself into. And I learned the, let's say, power dynamics or the local food chain, if you will. So I see, okay, the BGF is in charge of everything there. So if I want to find a broker, so I have to make sure the broker got ties with the BGF, otherwise everything will be in futile. That's what happened to most of those unsuspecting victims who want to ransom them out. Because as you said, let's say if I was unsuspecting and I was just say, oh, here's the thing, I got a deep pocket, I want to ransom myself out, so here's the money. Usually what they do will be taking your ransom and resold you to other compound or other cartels, because double whammy, right? You could receive the ransom from the victim, and you could receive the purchasing price from the other cartel for that slave. So what I did is was telling my parents, please find me a broker who got ties with BGF. Anything outside of that is not going to cut it. So that's what they did, outside the camp, because I simply cannot do that, because I have to worry about whether the cartel would swoop in and check my cell phone if I have searched something they deemed as red line stuff. So yeah.
Thanks, Neo.
Follow-up question for you.
Well, I know it sounds a little bit, I don't know, pompous, but I think my story is rather unique, and I don't really see myself as a typical scam compound victim here. And I would say most of Chinese victims of human trafficking and slavery, I think most of them were crossing border illegally, either entering northern Burma through Yunnan province of China, or entering Cambodia, either via the route to Vietnam or directly enter the Cambodia. And I would say my understanding to this matter is someone like me who flew to Thailand and trafficked into the neighboring country is a relevantly small part of the whole, let's say, industry. And well, I don't really have the stats here, but for most time, I think it's just a high-paid job, and some of the time it's I don't know how to catfishing, not catfishing. Let's say it's like a romance scam. It's more like a dating relationship happening online and or maybe in real life, and someone will call you to meet them up in Thailand, and one let's say not the most practical one, but the most cynical one is I experienced it myself. It was December or November 2022, and I was begging the senior member of the cartel to allow me to pay the ransom and release me. And they were literally telling me they don't accept the ransom, but they accept head accounts, which means they asked me to scam or traffic, to be more precisely, two individuals to the same cartel, same compound, exchange for my freedom. And that's how this vicious cycle works.
And I concur with Neil. The methods will evolve into multiple different types of methods in terms of the luring. But what I might add to Neil's account is that, you know, the four scam victims themselves going to the compounds, they get assigned different types of scams. For some of them, their scams are the employment scams, right? So their scams are to lure people to bring them into the compounds. And what we will notice is that, for example, if you bring one of the Mongolian cases was, you know, we were wondering why there was an increase in Mongolian traffic victims, and it turns out simply because there was the first Mongolian human traffic victim, and that first victim had to then recruit or organically recruited his friends and his network from Mongolia, and vice versa. If I can, so I want to pull Horace and Jessica into this, and if we can go back to the last question around getting people accountable. I forgot which question it was about the KNA and the border guard force. So I guess we're making progress. We're making progress. OFAC actually sanctioned Sorchip II and his family, his sons, in May this year, so 3 months ago. So there is increasing calls for accountability. Now, what I want to say before I invite the likes of Horace and Jessica to contribute is, again, back to Neil's investigation. A lot of these people, I mean, these people have been operating for years. They have business structures, they have assets all over the place, but it's not structured in their names. So they use proxies, they use front companies. And the fact that we, in this very, very short session, we've now merged intelligence from inside the compound, from crypto, from outside, from multiple agencies. It showcases how laborious it is to piece all this different intelligence together to get the full picture. So again, I'm saying we're getting progress, but it's still an uphill battle, and it requires all of us to contribute effectively. Maybe to Horace, I mean, what are your thoughts on the OFAC designations? What other challenges do you have in terms of finding and mapping out these illicit networks?
Yes, thank you, BC, for your question. So yes, we face some difficulties, especially when we are trying to get member countries involved in fighting these scam camps together. For example, some of the factors that really out of our control. An example is that some member countries, their law enforcement wish to take action, but the legislation doesn't allow them to do so. There's a problem, and maybe I'm not so sure, and I cannot say it firmly here that there are some other authorities may get involved in the scam industry. That's a very serious problem. So that's why I say trust is very important. And in some successful cases, we can see that those operations actually related by the country, not only the police. So Interpol, we united the police organizations, but somehow we may also need other assistance. As you can see, for example, in Myanmar, there are armies, there are soldiers, they are armed. So it may not easy for police to simply to crack down the scam centers as just easy as we thought, right? So that's why we keep on connecting different parties, different organizations, and just like you said as well, bits and pieces of intelligence need to come up together to form an overall picture, which is not an easy task. And we also rely on the partnership, yeah, with our private partners, private sectors, with the contributions from our member countries, and also from our own intelligence analysts. So we need to work together and hopefully can have a better picture for the puzzle.
No, no, really, really good point. And I'll let Jessica have the last word. We've worked on a few investigation projects trying to link it up.
I think
And yeah,
to
please go
end
ahead.
here, I just want to say that, as I mentioned earlier, that data is king. Really, is that you need to have like intelligence that makes sense. So you can have a lot of reporting, but if you cannot aggregate them into a bigger picture, it's meaningless to law enforcement, to the people that work on the case. And for the scam victims, and personally, we talk to them sometimes. My Intel people talk to them. They are very hopeful that some people can actually work on something. It's not that someone can be the hero in the case. It's just that this is beyond the complexity of the case is really really high, and we really need to share data. That's why I say data is king. Accurate, reliable, fast data sharing is key. I think that's all from my side. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you so much to our very insightful first ever webinar for GASA Southeast Asia. And I hope that for all the audience listening or watching right now, we will still have you in the next episodes of GASA Southeast Asia webinars. And yeah, that ends our webinar for today. Thank you so much and have a lovely afternoon.